So it's June 18th. I'm just now filming my video for books that I read in May. I only finished one book. And my office is in absolute chaos, as in normal. I feel like by now, people are getting actually tired of me talking about the gar hole is here. I have to take care of this. But you know, I've been working on it. I actually have something really cool I can't wait to show you that needs to get done a little bit more before I can show you what's going on. I even bought a 3D printer this year because I want to start printing out Gridfinity, these little, you know, bins like this that go into my toolbox over there. But the only problem is 3D printers, these things that break all of the time. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to have mine taken apart and do surgery on it, which I'm doing yet once again, so I can keep on printing the things, so I can get my office organized, so my office might not be a gar hole anymore, and so I can also do this new thing with this other cool space I have. But anyway, I digress completely. Let's talk about what I read in the month of May, and then also give you an update on Charles Taylor's A Secular Age. Hi, I'm Chad. I'm a pastor here in Louisiana. I make videos about the Bible, the spiritual life, and the everyday life of a pastor. And this is my monthly series about what books I have read. Okay, so let's get into the actual reading side of May. And it's not, remember, this is not about what I read, but this is about what I finished, because I read a lot in May, but I only finished one book. My friend Karl Vater's new book, Desizing the Church. How church growth became a science and then an obsession, and what's next. And I will tell you, I had this book sitting around for a few months. Karl sent it to me. He's a friend. I've done some stuff with him before. And I wanted to make sure I could actually think into this. So if you look back at last month's reading and the last video, you'll see why. Okay, I'm going to finish this stuff because I only wanted to focus on one book with this sort of conversations going on. I've been trying to go through a backlog of reading way too much and having way too many unfinished books. But it's the only book I finished. And I want to take the time today to talk a little bit more about the book than I would normally on this review, on this video series, when I have 4 or 5 or 6 books that I finished. Now, Karl's cool. We've exchanged podcast episodes before. I've done a little bit of writing for him, that sort of thing. So I know Karl. But Karl has been championing the normal size church for years. And for over a decade, I've been paying attention to his work on the normal size church. I'm going to link to Karl's website below inside of the comments. But one of the reasons this is curious to me right now is my primary work, my primary ministry now is I'm a denominational official inside the Louisiana Conference United Methodist Church, and I work as a congregational developer and vitality strategist. So the idea of churches growing is a thing that I think about a lot. And I need to make another video about how my own views of that have shifted and changed over the last few years. But I focus on normal-sized churches. The median-sized church in the United States right now is 60 people. The Lewis Center, which is a giant United Methodist think tank, about a year ago, and that 60 people was actually a 2019 figure. The Lewis Center says now the average size the median-sized United Methodist congregation in the United States is 38. And so what Karl's talking about in this book is it's the history of the church growth movement. And I grew up in a church growth church. I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. My dad was the pastor of around 2,000 people. It was the dog and pony show church, modeled after Saddleback, modeled after Willow Creek. Spent a lot of time thinking in that world. So I understand the church growth model, that mindset. In fact, that might be my primary spiritual experience, is what ministry looks like inside of this. But there's some questions about it. And here's the thing, if you're under 40 and you're not in the main line, your expectation and understanding of what the local church is, it's probably this church growth model. And that doesn't necessarily mean big, huge churches, but churches that are following a particular strategy and honestly a particular ecclesiology that fit into this. And so what Karl does is he goes into the history of the movement, then also the problems that it brings. And so the church scandals, abuse, all of these sorts of things that have popped up really heavy in the last 10 years. Even in the, like, as I'm filming this video in the last couple of days, Twitter has been absolutely fascinated with the scandal that's coming out of Robert Morris and Gateway Church in Dallas. There's also, I think, one of the pastors of Prestonwood in Dallas was arrested in the last couple of days for financial malfeasance. So he asks a lot of questions about what's going on with scandal and leadership in these sorts of models, and does great stuff. But what I appreciated about it more, and this is where it kind of, pulls into the realm of what Chad is fascinated with, is there's a unique American phenomena that comes with church growth. And what's so funny is the history of the church growth movement was actually looking at churches in India and China and how that happened, not so much this American think tank, American model of churches. But we've now exported a lot of these expectations to the rest of the world. I'll see inside of forums and stuff where you'll have small churches in Africa or in South America have these expectations that they look like, the big, huge church down the street with their communications and with their live streaming, that sort of stuff. We've exported this vision of how church is done to the rest of the world now. But what Karl talks about really well in the book, and so I'm going to talk about two things, and we're going to go on to the rest of the video, is one is, this is a unique thing that happened to America in the post-war age, inside of the silent generation, inside of the baby boomers. Like, it is a thing that belongs to a unique cultural moment. And so many times people are decrying what they're seeing over the last 4 or 5 years, and the loss of American religiosity. And here's the thing. American religious participation actually peaked in this time span of the last 50 years to levels that are completely unheard of. Like Rodney Stark wrote a great book, The Churching of America. It's back there in the stacks. I haven't had time to go grab it. But Stark talks about how during the colonial period, when we think like the founding fathers, the Revolutionary War, all of this, where we feel like America was every single person was a deeply committed Christian, it was actually the lowest levels of participation in church world. Ryan Burge is another social scientist who's also a pastor, is doing phenomenal work on research of these sorts of things and of American religious behavior and participation. We're kind of in the middle right now. Like we're not as high as we were in the 70s and 80s and 90s. We're also not as low as we were during the Continental period. And so I think that what Karl brings out in a really good way is so many of these expectations that we think are the way things have always been have actually just been like a statistical anomaly over the last few decades. And then on page 120, Karl does this fantastic thing. I love a good chart. I love a good chart. But he does this. I'm going to show you this real quick, but I'm going to pop up a graphic on the screen of what he calls an expanded view of size and health. If there's such thing as big and healthy, there's also such thing as big and unhealthy. And there's small and healthy and small and unhealthy. So I'm not going to make this a big, huge video about the way that I work and think about this, because I could talk about this for hours, and it's what I do for a living right now. But it's a really solid, good book. And I'm going to bring out one thing that he says that made me resonate with another writer that I like a lot. But there's a quote from page 75. If a church building looks like the mall, people subconsciously expect a consumer experience. He talks a lot about consumerism in the American church. Jamie Smith, in his book Desiring the Kingdom, an older book, massively influential book to me. I mean, it's before I had my markup strategy, but it is underlined all up and down. I read this in seminary. That's one of the things he talks about. Is like, if people walk into a space, if your expectations will drive your practice, and if all we expect out of church is an individual consumption, then that's really going to put pressures on church leadership, church design, church strategy, all of that, to simply make sure somebody always has a really good experience. So that's Karl Vater's book, Desizing the Church, How Church Growth Became a Science, Then an Obsession, and What's Next. If you're in church leadership, I think you need to read this. So the last part of this video, and when I started this series, I said, I want you to keep me accountable because I'm trying to finish this big, huge, chunky boy. You can tell there's a lot of notes, a lot of reading. Come on, focus, but you don't need it. You can see what's going on right there. It's an accountability. Where am I? So in the month of May, I managed to read 110 pages in Charles Taylor's monumental work, A Secular Age. Every month I'm popping back and just telling you where I am right now on this. I think 100 pages a month on a book like this, it's pretty solid. I could do better, but I could also do a lot worse, and I've done a lot worse in the past before. So that's where I'm on A Secular Age. So I'm Chad. I love making this video series about what books I've read, but also just the accountability factor. I think reading matters significantly in ministry, and this is just, one way my light fell it's still, there's no way it's not creepy right now. But thanks so much, and I'll see you back on the next video. I've got some fun Bible content coming up. I'm going to be talking about, I don't have one in front of me, but I'm going to be, oh yeah, I do. It's inside this book. I'm all over the place today. Maybe it's not in this book. It's still out in the shop. So I'm going to be talking about my favorite Bible pen. And I'm also going to be walking through something a lot of people have asked me about, is to make a video about how I use the daily office in my devotional practice. So I'm Chad Brooks. I've got my creepy horror light on right now, and I will see you in the next video.